Thank you for joining us for the program Industry Outlook, Identifying the Opportunities and Challenges. Our first speaker today is Darryl Cross. Darryl is Intapp's Head of Global Sales Enablement and specializes in building high-performance teams at professional service firms. He has presented to over 500 law firms from over 100 countries, including multiple gatherings of TerraLex on how collaboration, team dynamics, and technology drive better outcomes for clients. He has served as a Chief Marketing Officer at a US-based TerraLex firm, a Vice President at LexisNexis, and is an inducted Fellow in the College of Law Practice Management. Our next speaker is Ambika Kapur. Ambika is a senior consultant within Intapp's strategic consulting practice. She specializes in advising the legal sector and recently led the research on impact of COVID-19 across practices and sectors. She helps law firms define and deliver paths to profitable growth, enhance team effectiveness, and incorporate technology solutions to enhance client outcomes. Previously, Ambika worked with PwC's advisory group. Our next speaker is Kian Poon. Kian is a director within Intapp's strategic consulting practice and leads the COVID-19 Business Planning Support Initiative. His focus on the legal sector dates back to 2011 when he was part of the PwC Law Firm Advisory Group. Kian collaborates with law firm leaders to navigate market risks and opportunities and has advised several of the world's largest and most prestigious firms. Our moderator is Nicole Rudner, who serves as the Director of Practice Groups and Industry Sector Teams at TerraLex. With marketing and business development experience at both international and mid-sized firms, Nicole helps members identify and action collaborative opportunities to grow their business and build mutually beneficial relationships within the network. So thank you for being with us today. My name is Nicole Rudner. I'm the Director of Practice Groups and Industry Sector Teams at TerraLex. Joining me today are Ambika Kapur, Darryl Cross, and Kian Poon, all from Intapp. Today we're going to be talking about the industry outlook, opportunities, and challenges. But before we get into those details, Darryl, could you tell us a little bit about Intapp and the services it provides?
Of course. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you each of you for being here. Intapp, we're a technology company based in Silicon Valley, and we focus on professional services. We work with law firms, accounting firms, consulting, and private equity investment banks. Those are the only 5 industries we work with. It means we've developed a connected technology platform specifically designed for professional service firms and their fee earners. So our platform helps lawyers become more competitive, more effective, everywhere from business development to new business intake, and help them through matter delivery so they better serve their clients.
Thank you. So sort of the impetus for this program was a research piece that Intapp put out, the demand impact model. And Ambika, I understand you were quite involved in that research process, which helped create this model. Could you describe the methodology used, please?
Sure. So before I go into the model, I'll just introduce these 5 waves through which we think law firms will manage or are managing to COVID-19. So the first 2 waves are about resetting and replanning, and this was the initial response to working from home and adjusting initial operations for business continuity. So we understand law firms have already completed that. And the current focus right now is more about rethinking and successfully executing in this new environment and how you engage clients effectively, where you put in your efforts for what practices and what industries. So that's where our demand impact model comes in, and I'll walk you through that. So what we have over here is a demand impact model that talks about the shifts in legal services demand. So on the left side, corresponding to each row, we have different practice areas. So this is the type of work a law firm does. So for example, IP-related, restructuring, antitrust and competition. And at the top side, corresponding to each column, we have industries, which is related to the type of client and the kind of business they do. So I understand there are nuances in how each law firm looks at this. For example, some might put healthcare in a practice, but to avoid any overlaps, we've segmented practice and industries according to the definition I just walked through. What this demand impact model is, it's basically a heat map that shows areas where the demand for legal services is likely to increase or to shrink. And overall, we think the demand for legal services as a result of COVID will shrink. But there are, of course, differences across practices and industries. And that's what law firms need to consider while engaging clients. So if we look at the shades of orange, those show a decrease in demand, whereas the blues show increase in demand. And then we've got no significant changes marked by gray. Initially, it was business to consumer industries that were more significantly impacted, but as you can see across the model, all industries have been impacted. At the same time, law firms that serve small businesses will feel the greatest impact. And what we did was, in terms of methodology, is we looked at each industry, we analyzed the issues that they were facing based on external industry analysis, as well as information that Intapp was receiving. And then in terms of what that meant for client issues is how we showed how different practice areas will either go through an increase or a decrease.
Thank you. It's easy for someone to look at this chart you've prepared and say, for example, insolvency matters are likely to increase. But what are the deeper insights lawyers should consider from your findings?
Sure. So we can take consumer goods and retail as an example. So if we look at this industry, we know that global supply chains have been disrupted. Non-essential restores were shut down in a lot of geographies and only starting to open up right now. Workforces went through a lot of changes, and at the same time, prices of different goods increased or decreased. And overall, the demand has been dampened. So understanding those industry issues was important for us to then look at what the practice lens is. So if we go to the next slide, so areas where demand for legal services is likely to increase is on this side as we've shown, it's disputes, employment, and restructuring as some of the significant areas. So given the supply chain issues, there are a lot of contractual issues coming up where if certain clauses can be invoked or not, whether they're related to force majeure or price increase clauses linked to consumer price indexes. Similarly, for employment, workforces are changing, layoffs are being made, whether it's temporary or permanent. At the same time, flexible working is becoming more attractive. And distressed companies will, of course, need a lot of restructuring and insolvency support. So we've highlighted those as areas that firms should look at to increase their efforts so that this can help with practice planning. So to look at why this is important for our viewers, having looked at firms that went through an economic crisis previously as well, we know that some firms were actually able to improve their fortunes. And they did that by managing their client relationships, increasing their brand reputation, so that they have a stronger market position. Kian, do you want to share your perspective on this?
Sure, thanks, Ambika. I think just to highlight what Ambika said, the fundamentals that law firms need to focus on right now relate to the 3 R's, and that's relationships, revenue, and reputation. So I'll just unpack that in a little bit of detail. So when we talk about relationships, I think it's clear to see that building relationships now, or rather building new relationships now, is going to be increasingly hard. And in this crisis environment, we're finding that many firms are succeeding with their existing relationships. So that comes to the second aspect of revenue. And revenue very much does get derived from staying connected and relevant to existing clients. And we're speaking to many law firms now that are finding that their shift in revenue base is very much to those existing clients that they have built strong relationships with over many years leading up to and through the crisis. I think ultimately that then leads to the third R of reputation. And ultimately, this period of uncertainty can solidify the reputation of fee earners, lawyers, as well as the law firms as more than just legal experts, but as business advisors to the clients that they serve.
So could you give us some real world examples for this? Darryl, maybe you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think law firms need to really look at this in terms of, for every legal matter that you're thinking about, think 2 business cycles ahead, because that's the way your clients are dealing with them right now. So for an example, take like Daimler AG. You know, they're the 10th largest auto manufacturer in the world, but they have operations all over the planet. They have over 100 suppliers. They're all being affected differently with this. So think about it from the point of view of, yes, there's the immediate impact of, will we need to restructure? And as we mentioned earlier, the obvious ones like insolvency, but we start with furloughs and dealing with things with the workplace. Well, if they permanently have less employees, how does that affect real estate? Consolidation of real estate? Are they going to outsource more of it? Are there certain countries that they have supplier chains with that are more affected than others and they have to shift those contracts? Well, what happens when we break those contracts, and are they temporary, and does it have implications on tax and all the things that go with it? Now we have to worry about new IP covenants and worry about intellectual property when we switch suppliers. So it is a cascading chain of events that happens here. And not a lot of law firms have all those even internal relationships in place, much less external relationships to act quickly on it. It's a strength of TerraLex that you have affiliate law firms to work with. But the first step is really getting an idea on what kind of work do we do with some of these clients, but what are the external business issues that are going on? Just start thinking, if this happens, then what? And then what could affect that? Because you will have to start looking across practice groups as we go down the line and kind of trace out where we think the impact will be. Because clients want us to be predictive and proactive right now. They don't need more lists of what has already happened. They want to start looking at options of what to do next so they can get back to growth. So taking this approach, using this heat map to anticipate what's going on, but then getting specific to the client because of their industry, the work that you've done with them before, and the relationships that you can bring to bear is going to be very, very important for law firms going forward.
It's interesting, when this all happened, everyone described it as the new normal. But I think what you're saying is people need to anticipate what the next normal will be, and be able to give some of that predictive advice to their clients. So following on that, in what ways should lawyers look beyond their individual book of business or practice given these findings?
So I'll take that one. I think the most important thing that we think lawyers need to be thinking of now is this idea of being the connected professional. And that very much covers three principles. So the three principles of the connected professional are staying connected to your clients, working collaboratively with your colleagues, and bringing the best of your firm and network to your client. And I'll obviously talk about this in a bit more detail and elaborate on it. So with regards to that first principle of staying connected, what we would recommend is very much that every lawyer continues to sustain the relationships that they've built with their strongest clients, even if they may not require, even if the client may not require their individual legal expertise today. When Darryl and I spoke about this earlier, he spoke about this principle of the 5-5-5. Darryl, could you explain that in a bit more detail?
Yeah, it's a concept I call protecting the core, and it's actually a concept I've been talking about for a while. Lawyers are exceptionally effective when they're very detail-oriented. They can find a comma out of place in a 500-page document. But when we talk about business development and expanding what we do for our clients, we sometimes give them so many options that it freezes them in place. But if we asked an individual lawyer to pay attention, just 15 people on planet Earth that can make or break their year, they'd be much more effective. Those 15 people I recommend now to protect that core would be, who are your 5 most important clients? It's all important to give them great service, but the 5 ones that are really critical to your book of business and that to your firm. And then also identify 5 colleagues within your firm, people that are in various offices, practices, maybe ones you haven't worked with before, but their expertise and their access is critical to those 5 clients' needs. So maybe for the very first time, you are reaching across from New York to London or from the IP practice to real estate because that's what your clients need. So you pick those 5 clients, the 5 colleagues to get closer to, and that may change on a daily basis based on which client you're talking about. But finally, those 5 external resources that you need to stay in touch with. And that can be fellow lawyers at TerraLex firms. It could be an accountant, a banker, a workout specialist, or whatever it is. So we can get overblown if every lawyer is trying to worry about everything that could happen. But if we get them to focus on that 5-5-5 principle and rely on data that comes from your billing systems, time, intake conflicts, it's a confidential record of what your firm does, and then build those networks and teams to take proactive action for a small amount of clients, you multiply that by the number of fee earners at your firm, and it's a very robust yet actionable list.
Thanks, Darryl. Just touching on the second point, Nicole, when we talk about understanding industry-specific issues, we see so many firms with a vast amount of knowledge relating to an industry that they don't connect together. And ultimately, what we believe is that the leading firms are ones that can sit down across the table virtually and share that information in such a way such that they are able to connect their clients' issues with respect to all competence necessary, so that they can help each of the different clients navigate the various challenges that happen to exist within their specific industry. Looking to the second principle then in relation to collaborating with colleagues, you'll see that we've highlighted 4 points there. Ambika, do you want to share some elaborations on that?
Sure. So these are some key actions that each fee owner can take. So the first one is developing client plans. So a client plan is a basic plan that a team develops to understand and stay aligned to the key business issues and priorities of a client. And what that means is, as a lawyer, even if you might not be able to help the client over the next 3 to 6 months, you understand their issues, so you can bring together a colleague either in your own firm or in a network firm to actually help the client. And then in the long run, you're seen as a trusted business advisor, and they know that they'll come back to you. So as Kian talked about it previously, one of the key principles during this time is to focus on relationships and developing those key client plans, joining the dots and understanding the business issue and providing relevant services is a part of that. And mapping out key relationships at each client. So we understand this can be a tedious administrative task. So hopefully most firms have or tools such as CRMs or relationships that can help automate this and reduce the time that's spent on this, so that it's basically the insight that they're contributing to. Again, another thing is looking at data from your finance systems to conduct practice planning. For example, if there might be a certain practice area where utilization is high in the resources, and there's another practice area where utilization is not that high. So this is a good time to figure out how many resources you need to retrain to support the area where utilization is super high. And again, if you have tools, then you can automatically connect the experience of those resources to understand what shifts need to be made successfully. So these are some of the key actions that can be done to ensure that you're helping clients over the coming months.
Thanks, Ambika. I think lastly, the third principle around bringing the best of your firm and network to the client has very much been touched on. Now, we recognize that the firms that we are may have strengths as well as areas that we need support on. And that's very much where we think that given the limitation in our capabilities, be that by practice area, geography, or industry, that's very much the opportunity for us to work with our other colleagues in firms, in networks like TerraLex to maintain that client centricity. And I think that idea of being client-centric will ultimately help you sustain a collaborative relationship and partnership with your clients to weather the current situation and to put yourself in good stead for the long term.
Yeah, the issues that we face today right now that our clients are actually facing, what they've actually done is accelerated a lot of the things that law firms have been talking about for quite some time. Should we form proactive teams around specific clients? Should we go to market by industry group? Should we collaborate more and use technology to come across and talk with each other and solve client problems? These things just all got accelerated about 5 years or more. But there are a lot of the assets that you already have at your firm. If you work with a pharmaceutical client, they have issues that go beyond making pharmaceuticals. It is real estate and employment and IP and tax, mergers, litigation, whatever it might be. And so if we can start looking at it from their point of view, from this practice and sector lens to build these teams, you might do certain things like form teams to look at your clients, but also what are their top 2 competitors of those clients doing right now, but you can help your client take advantage of and to come out even stronger than they were before. So this is a careful balance of all these different systems and people, processes, technology, and it can be challenging. And there can also be challenges with culture and compensation along the way. But this is a great time to reinvent some of those things. If you previously haven't done that, forming around clients as teams or industries as teams, perhaps compensation structures can be built to accommodate those for the very first time. We just really believe that you should be bringing the whole firm to the client every time. That is the essence of being a connected professional, and that a connected firm is how can we take all the resources of your firm and the TerraLex network and bring it to the firm and to the client every time you have a meeting with them. It becomes an extremely powerful and very helpful thing in uncertain times.
Darryl, and you have a unique perspective because I think, as you mentioned, you have worked for a firm that was a TerraLex member, so you've kind of seen both sides of it. So with that knowledge and experience, how might a TerraLex member leverage the network under these circumstances? And do you foresee there being a greater need for global collaboration and relationships?
I do, and just a full disclosure, I used to be a chief marketing officer at a law firm that's a member of TerraLex, and still is a member of TerraLex, Benish, a great member. And I remember one of the first events that I went to was the global conference that was held in Prague a number of years ago.
Yeah.
I lost my suitcase. I had to do my speech in a rugby shirt and jeans at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. So I remember it very distinctly. But I was struck by the power of it. When you sit at a table and you have all these people that are lawyers, men and women from all these different countries who love to talk about their children, their hobbies, and helping clients. And so there's an enormous perspective here that can be brought to bear. If you are representing Daimler AG, and maybe you're working with one of their supply chains that are in Canada or Singapore or whatever it might be, you could bring together something very unique by bringing together individual lawyers from different firms and different TerraLex members together to create a unique solution for a client before they even think about it. So what I would encourage you to do is at the firm level, be thinking client by client, but you might want to start investigating across TerraLex that who else is working for this client or who else is working for their suppliers, because they need both. And if you can solve that problem without the client having to go for it, it's a great advantage both to you and to the growth of the client. So I think this is where it brings a distinction of it to other firms that don't have these kind of relationships in place. You have such a head start on them already. So don't just think about your practice group, think about those industries, but also how you can build a team that is a mix of practices and industries and geographies that maybe have never done that before. Use Zoom, use email exchanges, use anything that you can to try to build those networks and stay in touch with each other, and pick business issues of clients to focus on instead of just an industry or a client. What is the issue you're trying to fix? And then build something that we've never seen before. And then do it again, because that agility going forward is going to be the key to everybody's success.
Thank you, Darryl, and thank you, Ambika and Kian. I have a couple of questions. Darryl, you spoke very fondly of one of our TerraLex global meetings and how members used it as an opportunity to really get to know one another. And I believe firmly that people work with those who they know and who they trust. And it takes time to get to that point. And often we associate that with face-to-face interaction. But now face-to-face interaction is really challenging. So I wonder if you can talk about some alternative ways that members can still connect that may be outside of email, since every one of us already receives so much email every day.
So I think it's important to have that trust. We have to trust each other with our clients and each other's expertise. It's funny though, at a reception one time at TerraLex, I asked this question very specifically. I went around and I asked people, how long you've been working with the network? Do you refer business to other firms across borders? And everybody said, yes, love it, have had a great experience with it. And I asked a follow-up question, do you do that regularly inside your own law firm? And most people said, not really, not that often. I don't know people that well. And I thought it was ironic because the people they see every day, or they're on email chains with all the time within their own firms, they don't know as well as the people they see at an annual meeting at TerraLex once or twice a year. So I think it's not just frequency, but it's the impact of that frequency. When you spend 3 days together, get to know people beyond what they do sitting at their desk, it makes an impact. And so how do we create those frequency moments and those high trust moments? I think if you do it around the client, for example, that if you have decided that you're going to monitor a certain industry or a client and work together with other TerraLex members, then when an alert comes up, let's say in the news about this client had this big announcement or this industry has this new challenge, everybody picks up the phone or everybody gets on Zoom and has a conversation about it. What do you think? What do you think might happen next? And have that. So let the news and let the market drive creating opportunities for you to talk. But that talking does have to happen often. And people do have to have some sense of comfort in sharing new ideas and possibilities without them being shot down. So if you do it from the point of view of the client, how do we make this client more successful collectively? It gives a purpose for those relationships to build. And once you do it once and it works, it creates momentum. You can do it over and over and over again. So let the client or industry activity drive the opportunities to come together, and then do it immediately. Don't wait 30 days for the regular meeting. Make it happen the next day and take action on it.
That is a great answer. Thank you. I have one more question and I'll open it up to any of you. Earlier, you talked about one of the steps being doing practice planning. So maybe that involved a gap analysis of, what services you're providing to certain clients or what industries you're doing work in and, where you're not. But that information isn't always readily available to lawyers. I know when I was working in a firm in the marketing and business development side, sometimes the accounting systems couldn't produce the research that we needed. And I suspect some of our firms are at varying stages of having that information available to them. So what would be the first step if someone's firm, doesn't have it, but they want to get there? They can see the destination.
The issue with professional service firms isn't a lack of data, it's how much they have of it. And so they're all in a lot of disparate systems too. I mean, the amount of information that comes in during the intake and the conflict checking process and time and billing and doing the work and projecting what we might want to do in the future through business planning and CRM, it's massive. So it takes a moment to step back and go, what are we trying to solve here? Because if your lawyers or your business development professionals or whoever go there and say, hey, I need to see all the information about all of our clients for the last 5 years, it's not going to happen. But saying, we have an initiative that we're going to work on these 10 clients in these 3 target industries with our TerraLex network, and then get just that information. But then also bring all of those things together. So whether you're doing it on Excel spreadsheets or advanced business software, the key is how do we put that in context? How do we take internal information like time and billing and accounting and add external information, what's going on in the market or other people that know something that we can use, and then combine that with relationships. Who do we know at our firm or out in a TerraLex network or some other network so we can act upon it? It's putting all those pieces together. That's people, process, data, and technology. That's what a connected firm can bring to bear. But you have to pick where you're going to start. And I think that's the key part. If you just started with a few clients, it makes it so much more actionable than saying all of our clients. So making that choice, I think, is the first place to start.
I think one thing I'd add on top of that as well, Nicole, is that, as Darryl had mentioned before, to get a high performing team requires people of different skill sets. And when we think about practice planning, by all means, we do need the legal experts in the room to unpick the legal implications of industry issues. But we do also need to make sure that we have our business development professionals in the room who are able to provide some of those insights into market movements. And we do need to speak to our finance experts, by which I mean our finance function experts, to be able to look at past data from our financial systems to be able to inform where our work is profitable, where our work is growing at a solid rate, and ultimately bringing that all together to do what Darryl had said.
Thank you all. I appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with our members. Darryl, it's great to have you involved again, even if externally. And we hope that our members enjoy this program, and everyone take care. Thank you.